Moving on to Brandon's second trend now, talking about Gordon with the good hair, Hayward. He is back with the Utah Jazz, and not only is that great for all lovers of awesome hair, but also it could be interesting for George Hill's usage rate, and that's the subject of your second trend here, Brandon.
Yeah, so George Hill has been playing really well for the Jazz. I kind of like that. I like George Hill. I think he's just one of those players who doesn't really do too much wrong. I always kind of root for him. I don't. Maybe it's just sort of inexplicable, but last year George Hill had a usage rate of 15.8% with the Pacers. With the return of Paul George to the court, he took a back seat even though he's the point guard. But in 43 games in 2014-15, back when Paul George played only 6 games, George Hill had a usage rate of 23.8%. This year it's almost the same at 23.3%. So it's one of that he's in a more of a playmaking role. But the issue is that Gordon Hayward is now back, and that's what Gordon Hayward does. Hill's been heavily involved for the Jazz. While Gordon Hayward was out with a finger issue, he scored 32 or more FanDuel points in 5 of his 7 games. But again, Gordon Hayward, he's that kind of playmaking power or small forward. He's got a 26% usage rate in his past 2 full seasons. They've played 65 possessions together this year. Hayward's usage rate is just shy of 30%, and Hills is still sort of above where he was playing alongside Paul George at 21.5%. So I think this is really something. If George Hill can kind of keep up that usage rate, I'm going to be really intrigued. But again, Gordon Hayward's that playmaker, and I really think it's worth seeing how these two guys, if they remain sort of ball dominant, how that impacts Rudy Gobert, Rodney Hood, etc. In about 58, 59 possessions, when they've played with Hayward and George Hill, their usage rates are both below 15%. That's lower than it was last year for them. Rodney Hood's been pretty consistent with about 25 to 36 FanDuel points in all but one game this year. He's kind of that shooting guard that I'll look to. I can kind of bank on early on in the season, but I think we're really going to have to monitor this and see how much his role and George Hill's takes a hit with the return of Gordon Hayward.